Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Secrets of a Witch podcast with me, Sabrina Scott, on this lovely Wednesday. On this podcast, I talk all about life, love, healing, spirituality, witchcraft, magic, tarot, divination, feminine energy, healing from trauma, having good boundaries, not giving in to BS, and having a good life in general, cultivating our inner peace. Very, very important thing to be able to do in this day and age. Also just all the time, I think. So hopefully everyone's Mercury retrograde is going okay. Hopefully y'all, Awa says hello. Hopefully y'all are learning a thing or two about yourselves, habits that you can change, behaviors that maybe need a little bit of shifting, even if it's just taking a little time for yourself to journal in the mornings with your cup of coffee, even if it means waking up 20 minutes sooner, or in my case, earlier this week, showing up a little bit earlier than usual to downtown for my various hospital specialist appointment and just taking some time to read with a coffee for 20 minutes and just get acclimatized to the crazy frenetic downtown energy and just have a little moment with myself before stepping into the bustling and often stressful hospital environment. It's so important to carve out that time and space for ourselves to reflect, to do something that brings us joy or wisdom, or just to fucking breathe and contemplate. And I do find that creativity and inspiration and realizations tend to happen in those moments. So before we get rolling, just a few really quick announcements, and actually I'll do another really important announcement at the end. So I have mailed out almost all of the Body Magic books that have been ordered. So if you do not have a copy yet, you can still grab one over on Kickstarter. And if you've not received your book yet, do make sure that you've sent me your address on Kickstarter message. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, pop on over to my website, sabrinamscott.com, click books, and then click Body Magic. It is my new book, my fourth book, which is a graphic novel about witchcraft as a way of healing from trauma. This is the handmade, hand-printed edition, limited edition of 150, and I will be releasing a more mass market, cheaper paperback edition later on this year, and I'm really, really excited to get that into the hands of more folks because I think this work is so important. And if you just can't wait for the normal edition and you want something handmade and also hand-signed by me, you can just go grab that and send me your address, and I will send you the book within 24 hours. So there's that. The feedback so far has been really good. A few people have told me it's my best book yet by far, which is pretty significant considering people tend to love all my other books. So I'm just really stoked about that feedback so far. So thank you so much to everyone who has sent me pictures and kind words and just everything. It's made releasing definitely the most vulnerable book I've ever made just mean a lot, and I'm just really grateful for y'all. All right, other announcement coming later. Teaser, Feminine Energy Bootcamp. That's my teaser. More on that later. Okay, so today's topic, I want to talk about overgiving. I feel like this is such a common thing for a lot of women especially, and also a lot of folks who have a more feminine energy coded way of being in the world, even though giving and doing is a very masculine energy behavior, interestingly. So it's a strange kind of double movement with this, and people might see it as a little bit paradoxical, but let me explain. And so some of y'all listening to this might be like, well, how do I know if I'm overgiving? I'm just a generous person, and I just love giving to the people that I love and care about out of the kindness of my heart, and it just really makes me happy. How do I know if I'm overgiving? Okay, so you know if you're overgiving by a feeling of resentment. You know that you're overgiving when you have not actually been giving anything to yourself and you feel completely depleted. You know that you're overgiving when you're doing it out of a feeling of obligation rather than something that actually comes from the heart with no strings attached. You know that you're overgiving when that giving comes with an unspoken expectation that someone else is going to do something for you in return later. And so overgiving, people don't really like to look at it this way, but in my opinion, overgiving is actually a sign of inauthenticity. And I know some of y'all might be like, Sabrina, that's so mean. I'm so nice because I overgive and I'm just so great. And let me just slow you down. I'm not insulting anybody. I love y'all. It's all good. But overgiving often comes from a few different places that are not usually healthy. So I just wanted to go over them right now for everybody. So overgiving can come from feelings of our own personal inadequacy. We can feel like our presence isn't enough and we have to prove our worth and our worthiness. Really, we have to prove that we're good. And so oftentimes this overgiving behavior comes from this insecurity and this desire to prove that we're worthy of other people, that we're so useful, we're so helpful, we're so this, we're so that. And so this overgiving can also sometimes be about wanting our ego to be patted, wanting to feel like we are so Mother Teresa and we're just the best and we're just doing everything for everyone and we're so selfless, and don't we deserve to be praised and acknowledged because of our selfless overgiving behavior? No, you don't. And to me, actually, it's interesting. I feel like overgiving is a little bit of a red flag. So I'll explain. Overgiving, oftentimes it does come with these unspoken expectations, the unspoken expectations of praise, of adulation, wow, you just did so much, I appreciate you, an expectation of proximity or closeness or intimacy, right? And so in some ways, this overgiving is often kind of manipulative. We want a certain outcome when we do it, and we want to feel good. So it actually often also comes from this selfish place. And I think many people who overgive don't necessarily realize that that's what they're doing and why, right? But the reason why this whole thing is a red flag for me when I notice it in my personal life, and again, I don't judge any of my clients. I'm there to help you, honestly. Like, I've had clients who have called me from prison, having the most insane lives. Do I judge them? No, I'm there to help, and I see me helping them as an honor and a privilege. And so trust me, I've heard it all in my line of work, the most crazy shit you can ever imagine. And when you're in the seat across from me as my client, like, judgment completely gets suspended, and I'm 100% there to help you wherever you're at, no matter how bad of decisions that you are making or have made. Truly, that is how I feel. Anyway, back to overgiving as a red flag now that little disclaimer is out of the way. So why is overgiving a red flag for me in my personal life, outside of my professional life? So when I see someone overgiving, what I see is someone who has no sense of personal boundaries, someone who is also not honoring their own boundaries, and someone who does not know how to stop, and someone who does not know how to self-preserve. So oftentimes what I see is people will overgive. They will run themselves ragged to the bone. And they will do so much, often stuff that people didn't even necessarily ask for. They will just completely go over the top, over-delivering, overdoing, overgiving, often for folks that didn't even necessarily ask for that, And so what it shows is someone who is not contained. They don't have the healthy masculine energy to contain themselves and their own behavior. And they also don't have the healthy feminine energy to notice when they're at their capacity and actually have nothing else to give, and should actually take that time to nourish the self and give to the self and replenish the self. And so when I see someone who is overgiving, what I usually will see is someone who I can't trust. I need to know in my personal life that I can trust someone's yes that when they say yes to me, they're doing so when they have the capacity, the will, the desire to say yes to me, and it comes from a genuine place. And I also need to know that I can trust that someone will say no if they really can't either be there for me or do something for me or whatever. And when we can trust someone's yes and trust someone's no, we know that they are operating from a place of knowing what their own boundaries are, which requires, again, this healthy feminine energy to be in touch with your own body, to be in touch with your own sensations, and to be like, okay, what do I feel? Why do I feel it? I feel really overwhelmed. What am I going to do about that? Am I going to keep going? Or am I just going to, cancel my dinner plans and just take a moment to recoup? I understand that sometimes we can't cancel our plans, and sometimes friendship and relationship does mean that we have to show up for each other when we're depleted. If there's a crisis or something happens, sometimes we really do have to overcome our capacity. Sometimes that's just what true friendship is about. Like if one of my really, really good friends calls me at 10 p.m. crying because, I don't know, their engagement broke off, like, am I going to answer that phone and go over to their house if they really need me to? Absolutely. Even if I'm like in bed, ready to go to sleep, because that is a pretty severe, extreme thing to have happen. And I would see it as a privilege to be there for a loved one during something so horrible, and that they felt that they could feel comfortable to message me in that circumstance, right? So sometimes we do have to show up. That's what friendship and love and community can be about. However, we have to be able to balance that. And so what I usually will notice is people will overgive in these situations which are not that serious. It's like there is no life or death scenario. No one's in the hospital. No one's getting divorced. No one's breaking up. Like there is no crisis. This is just daily normalness. Like there's nothing that serious going on, and people will behave this way. And so the thing is, though, too, when someone is overgiving and that resentment is building, the other person being given to often doesn't really know that resentment even exists. They might just think like, this person is being authentic and they're giving. If this person wanted to say no, then they would. A lot of people operate under that assumption. And actually, that's how I tend to operate, too, is if I ask for something or I need help or someone is just giving of their own volition, often things I didn't even necessarily ask for, I'm just assuming that everyone is operating from their own sense of personal sovereignty. I am trusting that everyone in my sphere, in my personal life, is operating with an awareness of their own boundaries. And I'm not micromanaging or policing anybody. And it's a pretty peaceful way to live. And what's really interesting is a lot of the time when folks are in this space of overgiving, it's like they are ignoring and abdicating their own personal sovereignty. And the interesting thing is these folks often tend to assume or hope or expect that other people will do the same and make similar compromises. So it becomes this very bizarre wheel of obligation where everyone has these unspoken expectations, these unspoken obligations, these very bizarre ways of moving. And a lot of it is very inauthentic, and it tends to breed passive aggression, resentment, depletion, people not honoring their own boundaries and their own self-preservation and honoring themselves. And so we end up with this muddle mess of crap. But I do see this a lot, okay? And so how do we get out of this? Because this is such a common thing, and I see it especially among women, though obviously not exclusively. I think this can be true with lots of different types of folks. And so if you are someone who is overgiving, my homework for you would be to see if you can stop fucking doing that. And I know it's a little bit easier said than done. So let's break down, what does that mean, right? So if you are someone who says yes to everybody and everything, I would say carve out 3 nights a week where you are just doing your own thing. No obligation to anyone else, practicing just being with yourself. What are your own needs? What are your own desires? What is your body telling you? What do you really want to do? And sometimes people give in to the whims of others constantly in this overgiving in order to avoid spending time with themselves. And when we spend time with ourselves, that is really when we get to know who we are, what do we want out of life, and who do we want to be, and who are we? It's a really, really important thing to take some time to just sit with, right? We all should be doing that, in my opinion. Otherwise, we just end up at the whim of other people's plans and desires, which is not exactly a fast track to having a life that we're satisfied with, right? So other than taking that time for yourself, that is just sacred you time, next time someone asks you to do something, or next time you have the impulse to ask someone if they want you to do ABC, how about getting in touch with your body, taking 10 deep breaths, and figuring out, okay, do I really have the capacity to do this? Do I really want to do this? And maybe you have the capacity, the energy, the time, but you don't actually really want to. Notice that and act accordingly as practice. On the flip side, if you want to do it, but you don't have the energy, say that. Apologize if you want to, but set the boundary. Be like, yeah, I would absolutely love to help you with ABC, but I really can't today. I'm sorry. I'm over capacity. You don't even have to explain. But if you do want to explain, just be like, I don't have the energy. I'm so sorry. Or I don't have the time. I can't. But no is a full sentence, and you don't actually owe anyone an explanation. This is the other thing, too, with overgiving that I notice is a lot of the time folks will feel really guilty for saying no. And they'll often feel like they'll have to overly explain their no. And it's like their explanation, they're so worried with it being valid to the other person, so they tend to overly explain. And I used to be like this in my early 20s. I would come up with these like really long essays of like why I would have to reschedule this or that thing. And over time, I learned like, oh, people just take my no at face value. If I have to reschedule, they just assume that I'm doing it because I have to. And the reason is valid. I don't have to write an essay about how I have a headache or I'm stressed about this or that. And so I'm not going to be in a good space to do blah, blah, blah. Just practice saying no and having that be enough and noticing how do people respond. This is the other thing that we learn when we don't overgive and betray our own boundaries. We then begin to learn and notice who can receive our no with grace and love and acceptance and respect, and who gets snarky about our no. And who gets snarky about our no is going to be really revealing. And that is a whole other topic I could talk about, I'm sure, for a whole other episode, but I'll leave it with the overgiving for now. And I know that sometimes people will guilt trip you, right, into your overgiving ways. And it's really hard for folks who struggle with this to come back down to earth and stay strong with the boundary. And it's hard work at first. Awaz agrees. I don't know if you guys heard her meow. She's really loud today. But we have to stick with that, right? Because changing our life, changing our behavior, it's really hard at first and it gets easier over time until it becomes second nature. And if we want a different life, if we want different results, if we want to feel peaceful and at ease and aligned with ourselves, that often is going to involve making different choices than the ones that we've been making. And so I'm not making this podcast to demonize overgivers because I've been there and I know how it is. And it's not a fun place to be. And it often can lead to just feeling kind of like shit a lot of the time, right? We don't feel satisfied. We don't feel like we're getting appreciation in our relationships. We feel taken advantage of. We don't feel like we ever get to receive. Like all of that stuff is really common among folks who are overgiving. And I just want to make this episode to tell y'all who are in that space that there is another way to live. You don't have to be in this space of constantly attending to other people and refusing to attend to yourself. So to return to our homework for the overgivers who are listening. And I think even if you're a little baby overgiver, you can still learn from some of these homeworks, right? So again, take a few days, a few nights, a week for yourself. That's you time. And if you can only spare a few hours or 1 hour per night, do whatever the fuck it is that you want to do. Try to get a Lububu online. Read a book. Go to the gym. Stare at the wall and contemplate. Read poetry. Go on a walk. Something that is just 100% for you and what you want to do, regardless of what other people want you to do or what expectations other people have about you. This should be something that comes from your heart and soul and core that you want to do, that brings you back to yourself and your desires and your body and who you are and what you want out of life. It can be silly, it can be childish, it can be fun, it can be aspirational, it can be bougie, whatever it is. And that is your sacred, holy time of you. And the other thing is to honor how you actually feel in the moment when other people ask you to do blah, blah, blah thing. And also when you feel the urge in yourself to do blah, blah, blah thing. Question the impulse. Question your capacity. Do I really want to do this, or is this from a period of obligation? Am I just wanting to do this because I've always done this and this is what the other person expects of me? Am I doing this because it's a way to be a good person? None of that is a good reason to do something. Sorry, but it's true. And I know some of you guys listening might be like, oh my God, Sabrina, it sounds so selfish. How can you be so selfish? And it's like, well, no. We can only really give to others when our own cup is reasonably full. And I see this very much as on the airplane, they tell you to put your own oxygen mask on first before you put on the kid next to you's oxygen mask. And if you're a parent, like I'm sure most parents are going to be like, but my kid has to be, dealt with first for their own safety. But the thing is, you're not going to be able to help that kid later if you're passed out in the plane. And so we always have to put on our own oxygen mask first. And I see boundaries and personal wellness and, alignment with ourselves, knowing who we are, knowing our boundaries, knowing how to communicate, knowing what our capacity is. All of that is kind of the same thing as putting our own oxygen mask on first. Super, super important. And I'm just going to maybe leave it there. I'm really curious if there's a lot of overgivers who are listening to this episode, or if you are someone who has had to deal with people who are overgiving and what the fallout from that has been. Really curious how common each of those things is for you guys who are listening. And let me know what you thought of this episode, as I know that this is something that a lot of folks struggle with. I know for me, I struggled with this a lot in my early 20s, and it took me a while to unlearn it, but unlearning it has been so powerful, because now whenever I do give, I give from a heart space. I don't give out of wanting something in return, or because I feel like I have to, or because someone pressured me to, and I'm able to say no and just honor that about myself and expect that other people are going to honor that, and just go into all of these interactions with optimism and peace. And that is just something I want for everybody, because it's really fucking great over here. Okay, so thank you for listening, friends. Now I wanted to talk about my Feminine Energy Bootcamp, which is something I'm doing new for the first time. So it is starting next Friday. I know I'm kind of cutting it a little bit down to the wire, but next Friday is August 8th, the Lion's Gate portal, and it is Leo season. And it's just going to be a great energy. And I love this time of year. It's so vibrant. It's so powerful. It's so fun. It's so energizing. It's so transformative if we let it be. And so this Feminine Energy Bootcamp is something I wanted to do, as I do see so many people who want to learn about feminine energy. And if you've been following my work for a while, you will have noticed over the last 5 years, I've had an absolutely insane glow up. I am the hottest I've ever been, the happiest I've ever been, the most mentally at peace and untriggered and healed as I've ever been. And I'm also having the best experiences dating-wise that I've ever had. I'm finishing my PhD. I'm releasing books all the time. Everything is actually pretty fucking great for me. And the thing is, I want to teach you guys my secrets. I want you guys to get the same fucking results, or not even necessarily the same results, because we all have our own journey. We all have our own life to live. I'm sure some of y'all love watching my life, but don't necessarily want the same one. But the thing is, I want everyone to have this sense of personal sovereignty, this glow up, this inner peace, a strong sense of boundaries, a strong, unmovable, unshakable self-love. And I just want that for everyone because I feel like it's so fucking powerful and magnetic. And once you have that, everything fucking changes. And feminine energy, it's so interesting. I really always talk about it as the most advanced spiritual and magical work because it really is. It's not about doing spells for this or that we absolutely can. It is about a complete energetic shift on how your entire being vibrates and moves and lives in the world. It is hard to explain, but that is very much the vibe. And I believe that everyone can have a fucking glow up. If you're unsatisfied with your life, if you feel miserable, if you feel meh, if you feel inauthentic, if you feel like there is more out of life that you want to grab, but you're not exactly sure how, I really feel that feminine energy, masculine energy, and talking about energetic polarity in our family of origin, in our family now, if we have kids or are partnered, in friendship and community and group situations, and also crucially in love and our relationship to ourself and our relationship to our boundaries. All of this stuff is so fucking critical and is completely life-changing. And so in this boot camp, I want to bring folks from blah, meh, confused, lackluster, diminished into a space of sparkling joy, confidence, power, and just being ready for the next fucking stage of life and knowing it's going to be amazing and knowing that you now will have the skills to take yourself there. And I'm just so fucking pumped, and I want you guys to be also pumped. And so I want to take you guys on this bootcamp journey with me. It's going to be on Friday nights Eastern time. Right now I'm thinking 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, though I'm totally open to changing that depending on who signs up. And if there's any international folks, I'm sure we'll figure it out. But I'm thinking Fridays because Friday is associated with feminine energy and goddess energy. And I think that is the energy that I really want to be tapping into every week for 6 weeks with you guys. And if anyone is like, that sounds great, but I'm shy and I have a lot of fucking shit going on in my life and I really would rather a one-on-one, don't worry, I already thought about that. So there's 2 different ways to do this experience. There's a group version of the experience, and then there's also one-on-one, and both are designed to be a weekly thing for 6 weeks. And yes, so right now for the bootcamp, there is an early bird pricing that will change on the 8th itself. And so from now until then, you will get $200 off the main price. And so, yes, if you want to learn more, go on over to my website, sabrinamscott.com/bootcamp. So sabrinamscott.com/bootcamp. You can also find it by clicking a work with me section on sabrinamscott.com. There'll be all the details there. If there's anything that you really want to know, or if there's something you want to know whether or not I'm going to cover, if you want me to cover it and you sign up, I will 100% talk about it. I will 100% cover it. If you've never taken any of my workshops or classes or anything like that live before, I will tell you guys right now, my point is not to hear myself talking and to enjoy the sound of my own voice. The point of me teaching is always to meet you guys where you're at, elevate you, and also speak explicitly and specifically to whatever is present for whoever is in the room with me. And so I do expect that if everyone in the group wants to talk about one topic or 2 topics or whatever, and everyone's kind of going through some kind of conflict or situation with a few different things, 100% I'm going to be attentive to that, and that will take up a lot of what we talk about. So if you guys want to sign up, send me a message. We'll figure it out. I am super fucking stoked. The curriculum is also on the website as well. And if there's any questions that you have about it that I did not answer, please do reach out. I'm more than happy to help. I'm really wanting this information to be accessible. And some of y'all might be wondering, what is the difference between a masterclass and a bootcamp? Okay, so masterclass, I am teaching and you are the receptacle of the knowledge, and I say the things and then you go off and maybe you implement it, maybe you don't. I really hope that everyone does implement everything I teach. But with a bootcamp, the design of it, it's intensive. It's not a one and done workshop or masterclass. It is an intensive information and informational thing with homework to some extent, but there will be a challenge to, okay, how are we going to implement this? And every week I will give suggestions on how to implement these teachings into how the fuck you're living your life. And it's not going to be homework like writing exercises necessarily. It's going to be like, okay, what are we going to do? What actions are we going to fucking take? And that is so, so, so important. A lot of the time, this stuff stays abstract. It stays ephemeral. And I love abstract and ephemeral, don't get me wrong, but abstract and ephemeral is not going to be the wind in your sails to change your life. Action is what does that, and the boot camp is about doing shit. It is about action. It is about making change and committing to living life a little bit differently in order to get that different, better, happier, healthier life that we all want, really. Okay, so that's enough from me for now. I hope you guys dig. Let me know what you think. And if you got any questions, please let me know, including about time. You guys are never bothering me at all. Please holler at me. No question is stupid. And if there's anything that you really want me to cover, or if you guys need a more extended payment plan, please let me know. I am more than happy to meet you guys where you're at. I just really want everyone to have access to this deep level of high touch, transformative experience. Okay, y'all, that's it from me for now. Again, my website is sabrinamscott.com, and you can catch me on Instagram at sabrinamscott, and on YouTube, youtube.com/sabrinascott. Don't forget, on YouTube, August 1st, which is on Friday, I will be doing tarot for the month ahead over on YouTube. And of course, Sunday service again returns on Sunday at noon Eastern time. Okay, guys, I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.